All right, welcome to This Explainer. I am genuinely thrilled to be walking you through this material today because, honestly, we are tackling something that impacts literally every single one of us. We're going to explore how we manufacture so much of our own stress through daily, seemingly insignificant frictions. You know how it is. We get irritated, annoyed, and totally thrown off by things that, if we really step back, just aren't that big a deal. So today, we are unpacking the core concepts from Dr. Richard Carlson's transformative work on finding inner peace, just by making a few simple shifts in our perspective. So let's just get right into it with a pretty tough question. I want you to honestly ask yourself, are you treating life like an emergency? Think about your baseline behavior on a Tuesday afternoon. Are you constantly rushing around, overreacting to minor inconveniences, and acting as if every small glitch, like, I don't know, a slow driver, a delayed flight, or a spilled cup of coffee, is an absolute life or death crisis? We so often live our lives just sprinting from one manufactured drama to the next, and we completely lose sight of the bigger picture. To fix this, we're going to follow a chapter-by-chapter roadmap for a total paradigm shift. We'll start with the great emergency illusion, then look at 2 rules of harmony, move on to taming your mental snowballs, cover kindness over being right, and finally wrap up with the ultimate perspective shift. Okay, Chapter 1, the great emergency illusion. Why getting it all done won't save you. Because we definitely have this deep cultural obsession with having an empty in-basket and a perfectly checked-off to-do list. We trick ourselves into thinking that getting everything done will finally bring us peace. Like, once I finish this project, I'll relax. But here is the profound truth we have to accept. The purpose of life isn't to get it all done, but to enjoy each step along the way. The very nature of an in-basket is that it is meant to have items in it. It's actually not supposed to be empty. If you're waiting until your to-do list is entirely clear to finally relax and be happy, you are absolutely going to miss out on your loved ones and your actual life. New tasks are always going to replace the old ones. And to put into perspective just how absurd our expectations can be, think about this number, 1,000. The author actually sat down once and calculated that on an average day, he did over 1,000 different things. If we walk around keeping a mental scorecard of every little chore, every favor, who last emptied the dishwasher, we just make ourselves miserable and resentful. Taking out the garbage is the literal definition of small stuff. If we just drop the scorecard, we free up a massive amount of mental energy. Moving right along to Chapter 2. 2 rules of harmony. This is the foundational shift in perspective for everything else we're going to discuss today. So get this, the author had this massive light bulb moment when a foreign publisher made a huge, potentially legally disastrous mistake. They used an unauthorized endorsement from the famous Dr. Wayne Dyer. But instead of threatening a massive lawsuit or blowing up in anger, Dr. Dyer responded with complete grace and humility. He just sent a letter with these words. Rule number 1, don't sweat the small stuff. Rule number 2, it's all small stuff. Let the quote stand. He didn't let a ruffled ego ruin his peace. He just chose the path of least resistance. Now, to actually live by those rules, we need to completely rethink our habits. Check out the final step in this cycle. Lower your tolerance to stress. We usually brag about having a high tolerance for stress, right? Like it's a badge of honor. But the paradox here is that if you raise your tolerance, you're literally just inviting more stress into your life until you inevitably hit a crisis. Instead, if you intentionally lower your tolerance, you notice your stress early. You catch it. You step back. And you slow down before the whole thing spirals out of control. Which brings us to Chapter 3, taming your mental snowballs, mastering your internal monologue. Because let's be real, our thoughts can get wildly out of control if we aren't paying close attention. We call this snowball thinking. You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, that midnight panic. You wake up at 2 a.m. remembering one simple minor phone call you have to make tomorrow. Suddenly, you're rehearsing the conversation, which reminds you of how busy your week is, which leads to feeling totally overwhelmed and sorry for yourself, and suddenly you are buried in a mental avalanche of anxiety. You have got to nip this snowball in the bud. The second you catch your mind spiraling, consciously hit the brakes on that train of thought. And here is a really radical suggestion to help with that. Intentionally allow yourself to be bored. I mean it. We've turned into human doings instead of human beings. We are absolutely terrified of stillness. But intentionally sitting and doing absolutely nothing for just a few minutes a day, it clears the mind, it builds incredible inner peace, and it actually fosters your creativity way more than constantly doom scrolling or looking for stimuli. Part of getting comfortable with that stillness involves utilizing what the author calls your mind's back burner. Instead of frantically trying to force a solution to every single problem right this very second, you can mentally toss those variables onto the back burner of your brain. Kind of like making a really great soup. You just let your subconscious quietly and gently simmer on the solutions. Honestly, the less you actively interfere and try to force an answer, the better the result usually is. All right, chapter 4, kindness over being right. External grace in your relationships. We're going to shine a little light on our massive, totally ego-driven need to correct people and how it's kind of destroying our relationships. I want to pose a rhetorical question here. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because a lot of times, those two things are mutually exclusive. Needing to be right all the time alienates the people around you, and it completely exhausts your mental energy. But if you choose kindness, if you just surrender that burning need to correct someone and just let them have the glory, you build deep connections and you develop a really quiet, unshakable inner calm. And that brings us to this brilliant visual metaphor called weatherproofing. Just like you'd walk around an old house looking for drafts or cracks to seal it up for the winter, we do this exact same thing to the people we love. We go hunting for their minor flaws and their weird quirks and we point them out. It's a toxic habit, and it slowly ruins the appreciation we have for our partners. You have to stop weatherproofing your life. Nothing and no one is ever going to be perfectly flawless. When you do encounter annoying behavior, use this little framework to see the innocence. Underneath the clerk moving at a snail's pace might just be someone having a terrible, exhausting day. Underneath the partner snapping at you might be a totally frustrated person who's just craving some love. When you can look past the obnoxious surface behavior to see the innocent struggle underneath, your frustration almost instantly transforms into compassion. So here is a quick rundown of actionable tactics you can use to implement this grace right now. First off, stop finishing other people's sentences. Interrupting is exhausting because you're trying to be in two heads at once, yours and theirs. Just listen. Let others have the glory. Seek first to genuinely understand their position before rushing to defend yours. Make a point to tell 3 people you love them today. And practice random acts of kindness. Pay the toll for the car behind you. Buy coffee for a stranger. It creates this amazing, joyful ripple effect. Finally, chapter 5, the ultimate perspective shift, stepping back to see the big picture. Now we are zooming way out from daily interactions to the macro view of how we relate to the universe, to time, and to our own expectations. First things first, you've got to surrender to the fact that life isn't fair. And actually, admitting this is incredibly liberating. Think about it. When we demand that life be perfectly fair, we spend all our energy wallowing in complaints and self-pity. But when we just accept that everyone gets dealt a different hand, it immediately moves us out of complaining and straight into helpful action and real compassion, both for ourselves and for others. And when things do go wrong, I want you to use this number, 1, as in 1 year. This is the time warp game. Whatever massive, overwhelming emergency or huge argument you are dealing with right now, project it 12 months into the future. Ask yourself, will this matter a year from now? 99% of the time, the answer is a flat no. It simply won't matter. And realizing that gives you instant peace. Also consider this really profound Buddhist teaching. See the glass as already broken. Everything in life is in a constant, unstoppable state of change. Every physical object will eventually break or crumble. When we accept this fundamental truth, we aren't shocked or completely immobilized when something finally breaks. Instead, we appreciate it so much more while we actually have it, and we stop resisting reality. I absolutely love this funny little poster quote. Life is a test. It is only a test. Had this been a real life, you would have been instructed where to go and what to do. It's the perfect, lighthearted reminder to redefine those totally insurmountable problems we face. Instead of treating them like life or death battles, view them as what they are, merely tests of your patience and opportunities for your growth. You always have a choice to rise above a test. Which brings us to our final and probably most provocative thought for the day. When you die, your in-basket will not be empty. So what are you missing right now while you're frantically trying to clear it? The hard truth is, someone else is eventually going to have to finish your to-do list. Since you literally cannot finish everything anyway, it's time to stop sweating the small stuff, let go of the fake emergencies, and finally start enjoying the journey. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I really hope you can take some of these mindset shifts into your day.